Welcome to the show that has it all. This is the Betfred Super League.
What a game!
Champions, challengers, newcomers, leagues faithful. Hold on tight. This is the Betfred Super League 2024. There's nothing like league.
Yeah. No! Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
Hello again. It's that time of the week once more. Welcome to Eddie and Stevo, the podcast. Half an hour or so where we talk about everything that's going on in the big, wide, wonderful world of rugby league. And in 2024, we are here once again with the support of the game's major sponsors, Betfred. Well, only one place to start this week, Sin City, a.k.a. Las Vegas, where the Australian NRL season got underway last weekend. Manly against Souths, Roosters versus the Broncos. 2 games in front of 40,000 people. Our main man is still in Australia and he's waiting to talk to us right now. Stevo, a success in Sin City?
Oh, without a doubt. A wonderful success. But did it impress the Americans? That is a big question. According to the ratings in America, they only had 61,000 people watching on TV, which I can assure you is a very, very low figure for any sport put out in the USA. There was 61,000 for the first game, Manly Souths. It dropped to 44,000 for the Roosters versus the Broncos. But the ratings in Australia was high. In fact, around about 25% up on last year's opening rounds and fixtures. So it's a success here down under. And they're claiming that it's a great success over there. I mean, 40,000 people into that magnificent stadium. You've got to say for yourself, well, they took a gamble, and I think it's paid off. And they've got another 4 years to come.
I was going to say that, yeah, they're hoping for 50,000 crowd in 2025. Listen, it's going to take time, isn't it? And if they're giving it 5 years, you know, they're giving themselves a chance. And it could easily spread. There's no question about that. The games were good then, yeah?
Oh, tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. And the amazing thing, or should I say not amazing thing, is that the 2 officials, Australian officials, guess what? There was hardly any penalties in the entire 2 games. There was a few head-eye shots, etc. and so forth, but all 4 teams wanted to play open rugby league football, which was amazing because a gridiron field is a lot narrower than what you get on a rugby league field. So all in all, I think it was a great success, especially the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. I mean, they are saying that they should be going back there every single year. I don't think that will be allowed because they've seen how successful it was, and all the other clubs down under, they want to be part and parcel over the next 4 years. But when you talk about trying to inject something into it, then you've got to more or less look at the fact that, look, the Manly chairman, Scott Penn, now he wants a Seagull to be included for the next 4 years, obviously. And he's had talks with the San Francisco 49ers president, Al Guido. And he wants Guido and the 49ers to purchase shares in the Manly team, which in effect will make them go over and play a few games like the Gridiron play a few games in London. The San Francisco 49ers, it's nothing unusual for them because in 2023, they bought Leeds United in June last year. So they want to spread their wings. They've done it in the UK. Why not do it in America for the Australian game?
Well, it's a great idea. And, of course, American investors have got huge money in the English Premier League over here. So it's obviously something that will maybe run and run. And I tell you what, Stevo, the NRL, the ARL, they are not slow. They're not backward in coming forward, are they? I mean, that's tremendous. He was over there, the head of Manly, and he's made the contact. I mean, good on him. He's seen an opportunity. He's gone for it.
Yeah, and my mind goes back, Eddie, maybe 40 years ago, when the fact that New South Wales and Queensland, they played an interstate game every single year. But they took a gamble and said that you had to be born or played your first rugby league as a junior, either in Queensland or New South Wales. They called it the state of origin. We call it, it was Yorkshire versus Lancashire and Cumberland when I played. And it was well supported. But now, in Australia, it's the number one competition of all. You cannot get a ticket.
Brilliant, really brilliant. I mean, the Super League officials were there in Vegas, as we know, talked that maybe the World Club Challenge will be held in Las Vegas next year. Let's wait and see. But the NRL's chief executive, Andrew Abdo, has confirmed for the first time that the ARL might be interested in buying a stake in our Super League. No confirmation of a definite approach, but he spoke hypothetically that he could see the value of a link-up, and the board is open to having a conversation. Rodri Jones, head of Super League's commercial, was in Vegas as well. He says he wants the Super League to be firing and the Northern Hemisphere to be growing. Are there any green shoots there that perhaps there will be an investment from Australia in the Super League, do you think?
Well, we have our fingers and toes crossed. It's as simple as that. Now, if we can't raise it ourselves, then let's knock on the door of the Australians. Let's say, all right, NRL, we need to get the international game back on track, which the international board have already announced that will be starting soon, that we've got to make sure that the British Lions tours come back in, the wonderful tests between Australia and England, or Great Britain as we used to know it, and we've got to ensure that is.
And just to emphasise the point, I mean, I'm just thinking, by the way, before I move on to this, you remember when the Herns were hoping to buy a stake in Super League and all the club owners threw their hands up in horror because they believed, whether it was right or wrong, that the Herns would want some monetary reward out of it. It was all kicked into the long grass. We've never heard about that ever again. I just wonder if the NRL wants some money back for their investment. Will the clubs in this country, will they give it the green light?
Well, what they've done already, Eddie, is pass it on to a company called IMG.
Yeah.
And, everybody's sitting back now and saying, let's see what happens. But, the clubs have agreed. They've said, yeah, it's now up to you, IMG, to get our game on, hopefully, a similar level as we do down under.
I think it's important, Stevo, that we get more investment in the European game, because it's emerged this week that from 2025, the Catalan Dragons are going to have to start paying the travelling expenses of the English clubs to play in Perpignan. All the 12 Super League clubs receive central distribution of funds from the television deals, but because of the shrinking income from those broadcast agreements, some stakeholders are questioning the return on that investment in the French clubs. Toulouse had to pay for the English clubs to travel to France when they had their 12 months in Super League. They were immediately relegated. I hate to say it, this is a bit short-sighted, isn't it? Because Catalan is the great success story of the past 20 years. Is it because they don't bring many travelling fans to their away games? They don't sell a pint, they don't buy a seat, they don't buy a pie. If that's the case, dare I say, what are they going to do about London? Because London don't travel in any great numbers to the north of England.
Correct. My mind goes to the NRL. You don't find many New Zealanders coming over to Manly or eastern suburbs because it's too expensive.
All 6 games at the moment are on the TV. You don't need to travel.
Right.
There was 160 for Castleford at Warrington last Friday night. They don't need to travel.
And the big equation over here is that the New Zealand Warriors, right, have announced that the first 2 home games, they've sold out. You cannot get a ticket now.
There you go.
Sold out. So that gives you sort of some indication about how that can work. It's not going to be easy. And I don't have any clues as to perhaps what we can do, apart from, and I keep saying it, we've got to generate more finance, more money into our game.
Indeed so. And the clubs in this country have got to take a leaf out of the New Zealand Warriors books, and they've got to try and sell their home games as much as possible to their home supporters. They shouldn't be relying on away support to come in. They should be balancing the books on what they've got for themselves. Okay, I know that the crowds are up a bit this year so far. Let's hope it continues like that. But the clubs, and it's the emphasis and the onus is on the clubs to do a bit of hard work in the marketing and get the grounds full. Let's have a look at the games that were played last week. And for a change, we don't have to berate the referees. Rules have been reviewed. And this week there were just 11 sin bins in the Super League games. So let's talk about the action. Saints, top of the table, 3 from 3. But Lee put up a mighty fight. They only went down by 12 points to 4. But John Asiata, he was sin binned after 41 seconds because he went in a bit low on one of the Saints players. Now, remember, he caused all sorts of a furore last year after the Challenge Cup semi-final between the two teams. Tackling below the knee can cause all sorts of problems. And you might remember last year, Alex Walmsley and Ignatius Parsi, their seasons were halted, and it led to a rule change. Well, first tackle of the game in 2024, he did it again. He hasn't been charged, though. He's not been charged by the match review panel. But John Asiata's got to just take a little bit care of himself, hasn't he, and his other players. I think Sky described him as a pantomime villain. They called you a pantomime villain on a few occasions, but you never got suspended, did you?
I think it was a little bit worse than pantomime villain. Look, it's up to the coaches to ensure that he just gets his technique sorted out. He's very, very lucky that he hasn't received a ban. I think it was on just like 40-odd seconds into the game when he did that.
His first tackle, yeah.
And you just think to yourself, I'm surprised, but maybe the disciplinary committee have said, look, we'll give this guy a chance. Let's get into the club and just say, you've got to change his technique. Simple as that. It won't be easy. Because throughout your career you get used to doing one particular style of tackling, but he's a very, very fortunate boy.
He is in some ways, and so is the disciplinary committee, because although they've said maybe, well, let's see how he goes, he's not going to be going for a wee while yet, because he was on the field, I think, for another 15 minutes after he came back from his spell in the sin bin, and then he limped off with a calf injury, grade 2 calf tear. Both he and Tom Briscoe are set for long spells out on the sidelines. So Lee are doing it tough. They really are, injury-wise, at the moment. But they're putting in gritty displays, Stevo, the Lee Leopards. They are. They're hoping to build on last year's Challenge Cup success. They've lost Edwin Apapi as well,
and they're not a club that, shall we say, got a great deal of top quality depth either. But enthusiasm and working as a team, which we saw last year, to great results. It's very difficult, but they'll keep trying. And talking of keep trying, what about the London Broncos? It looked as though they were going to get their first win, 2 minutes to go, and they conceded a try. But at least it gives that club a little bit of hope. A lot of people have already rubber-stamped them to say, well, they'll finish at the bottom of the table. IMG have virtually said, well, you're not going to be in Super League next year because they haven't got enough these so-called points, even before a ball was kicked.
Yeah,
but
we're doomed. He did, and they are. If you look at the IMG proposals, and if they do finally get rubber stamped, they are doomed. They will go out of the Super League next year, and it will take them time to find their feet in the higher division. But they took the lead for the first time this season at the weekend after that James Meadows try. Battled back from 16-4 down half-time, led with 2 minutes to go. Then, God blimey, Morgan Smith, Stevo, a former player, a former London Broncos player, snatched the win for the Black and Whites. Heartbreaking for them. Heartbreaking.
It certainly is, but at least it will give them some sort of boost. A lot of people thought they were going to be beaten by 40-odd points on a regular basis. I'm not saying that the way that Hull came back, or took the lead, should I say, I'm not saying that they're going to be at the top of the league table. I'll put it that way. But it must have been heartbreaking for the players, the staff, and the people all involved. But the one bright spark, Eddie, is that the crowd. They had a crowd the other week. Remember?
Yeah, they did. 5,000.
5,000. So
yes, they did.
Off the field of play, they're doing the best. They really are trying and trying and trying.
And Steve, when you think about it, it's all off the field that all these points come from in many ways. It's not about what happens on the pitch anymore. If they're going well off the field, they've got a chance to stay in, haven't they?
Yeah, and if you're not doing it on the field, then you've got a chance to being relegated, because we don't really know how this relegation sort of situation is going to be. They say if you don't get enough points, then you're gone. But what about if another 2 clubs don't get the points? Does that mean that 3 clubs go?
Questions that need answers, Stevo, and we'll get them one of these days, or you'll provide the answers for them. I'll tell you that. Now, look, how about Salford, by the way? 17-10 winners against much fancied Hull Kingston Rovers. Tyrone May, Mikey Lewis and all. Salford have lost star players from last year. Tyler Dupree's gone, Brodie Croft, Andy Ackers, to name but 3. But they're still producing the goods. Paul Rowley, he deserves a special mention, doesn't he?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Rowley has turned into what I call a super coach. He's a good thinker. He was a good player himself, and he knows exactly what's needed. He realizes that if you're a little bit down on what you could call top quality class, then the defence has to be solid, and that's what it's based on. Not many people thought that they'd win against Hull Kingston Rovers, who, as you say, they look destined for a top 4 position. They coach well, they've got good players, and it just shows you that, you get a good coach in Rowley, and as you say, he deserves a special mention.
Well, he's had one on our podcast. There you go. And they're sitting 6th at the moment, level on points, 4 points with Warrington, Wigan, Catalan, and Hull Kingston Rovers. They are punching above their weight. I mean, Wigan, Saints top of the table. What about Liam Marshall? A hat-trick against Huddersfield in the 30-16 win after backing up again after the World Club Challenge. Wigan are going to be there or thereabouts as well this year. Warrington, Catalan, despite the fact that they lost at the weekend.
What I like about, you mentioned your team, Eddie, Warrington. Is
I live here. They're not my team. But
I know. Look, a lot of people before the season started, it was Sam Burgess this, Sam Burgess that. The one thing that has really pleased me about what Sam Burgess has done is giving the youngsters a chance.
Yes.
Now, for many, many years, people would say to me, I can't see why Warrington aren't getting to the finals. I can't understand this and the other. Well, over a period of time, I often thought that there were more players involved in trying to run the club than actually doing their business out on the paddock. And I've just got the impression that Sam Burgess has got, right, you're a youngster, give the youngster a go, give them this, that, and the other. They've got rid of a few of the golden oldies, and now the youngsters are coming through.
They are.
And they played well.
Foolish and Aston, they're established young guns now. What about this Leon Hayes? You've got to add him to the list. And there's some more waiting in the wings, I'm told.
Well, that's what it's looking at, is that it's not just transforming the club. Transformation is also about bringing young players in, letting the older players realise that if you don't come up to scratch, you're going to be dropped. I think for far too many years, Warrington, a lot of the older players, they were in their comfort zone. If you had a bad game, oh, don't worry, I'll be picked for next week.
Because they didn't have anyone coming up behind them, is that what you're saying?
But you also need a coach that's quite willing to just look them in the face and say, listen, you're not playing well, you're dropped. I'm putting this young kid in. That's the future.
Brave. Yeah, it is the future. It's brave. It is brave from a brand new coach like Sam Burgess. But let's see if it all works out. Can we talk? I dread to raise this subject with you. Can we talk about video referees? There are every game now many decisions being handed to them for resolution. I wonder, because the technology is now available at every game, that the on-field referees are reluctant to make a decision on their own in fear of being proved wrong. The process seems to be getting a bit drawn out and taking away an awful lot from celebrations inside the ground and live. So long as they get it right, it doesn't matter, does it? But are they getting it right? Are they getting the right pictures? Are the pictures of sufficient clarity for them to make the right decisions? I'm going back, I think, to the World Club Challenge, that last second try from Penrith Panthers. Are we 100% convinced it was not down?
No, but when you look at the try that was given, not only was it a double movement, it was a triple movement. And you're asking me whether we should talk about the video referees. Look, they're getting to a point where, can you get me a different angle? Can you get this, that, and the other? And you're right. It's slowing the game down to such an extent that, heaven forbid, we might get like rugby union and only have 30-odd minutes of action throughout the full 80.
Well,
they stop for everything.
I know, and the ball's in the crowd more than it is on the ground. I realise that, on the grass. I understand that. But our game is a little bit different to that, I think. I mean, it does have a bit of a full stop every time we go to the video referee. I know that Phil Bentham's now started, by the way, as head of referees. I wonder if and he listens to this podcast, by the way, so I wonder if Phil Bentham will say to his referees, make a decision and live with it.
Well, as I say, in Australia, they were saying, who on earth made that decision? So, look, it's very, very difficult. But I'm with you. It's taking far too long. Can you give me another angle? It should be no try. What are they waiting for?
Or should be a try. It seems obvious. If you're looking at it, you're right. I know.
Look, it's difficult.
Frightened to death, Stevo. But you're not in the commentary box anymore, so they should ease off a bit. They should relax a bit more.
Now that it's all televised, maybe we don't have enough referees or video referees of the same caliber that we should have.
Well, there's Phil Bentham's big job, isn't it, to recruit and find
That's
some
right.
more people. We're just about coming to the end, Stevo. There's a couple of sad pieces of news that we ought to reflect, I think. It happened last week, the first one. Darrell van de Velde, the former Queenslander, of course, and he took Castleford to Wembley. He was a Warrington and Huddersfield coach as well. He signed Alfie Langer for Warrington back in the day. Darryl sadly passed away on the 27th of February, aged just 72. Oh, he's been taken far too young, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he was a lovely character.
He was.
I often go up to Broadbeach in Queensland, and he lived in that area. And quite often I'd bump into him, and amazingly, we were going to the same pub.
Really?
Yeah, he was a great man. He was a good coach as well. But as a man, he'd tell you straight. He didn't suffer fools easy. He was strong, and a lot of people didn't like his style of coaching. But that's how he got, in his mind, success. And
yes.
Rest in peace. A great man, and a lovely person to have a chat with and the odd drink, and he'll be missed.
He will. He of course, he had to operate under some severe financial difficulties at Warrington. He sold Sculthorpe to Saints for £375,000 during the 1997 close season, and then he splashed out 65 grand to bring Lee Briers the other way, and we all know the career that Lee had. Also, deep sadness that the Leeds Rhinos have learned the passing of the legendary Lewis Jones. He's gone, died peacefully in his sleep after a short illness at the age of 92. Now, this man was, and still is, a legend known as the Golden Boy at Headingley.
Correct. Rest in peace. One of the greatest athletes to have played our game. He had this wonderful sidestep. He had a wonderful dummy. He had explosive speed. And he was creative. One of the most creative players I've ever witnessed. I used to watch him when I was a youngster. And many years later, of course, he came down to play a coach down at Wentworthville in Australia. And met him a couple of times whilst he was down here, and every time he came back. And then, of course, he went back to the Leeds area. He was always at Headingley, and he always gave you time to talk about what we both discussed as the greatest game of all. He was a great tactician, a wonderful man, a perfect gentleman. A lot of people use the word great, and I'm not saying that some players deserved it or didn't deserve it or whatever, but you can say one thing about Lewis Jones. He was one of the greatest players of all time.
He was. Thousands of points, records galore, yet so much more. Besides, he led Leeds to the first ever championship in 1961. He lifted the Challenge Cup at Wembley in 1957. You know, fantastic. One of the greats, and deep sadness around Headingley. And I'm sure that they will be paying their tributes to him. A man who was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013, and he was one of the first players inducted into the Leeds Rugby Hall of Fame in 2017. Fantastic man, and God bless him, and God rest his soul. Plenty to look forward to over the weeks to come, and we'll be talking more in a week's time. You're keeping well, I take it, down there? You're enjoying the sunshine, back end of the summer?
I'm getting through it, as we say, and and I'm looking forward to my return to the UK. I'm coming back in May, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure you are, because they're naming the stand after you, aren't they, at Dewsbury? Is it going to be the Michael? I know it was only your mum ever called you Michael, but is it going to be the Michael Stevenson MBE stand or the Mike Stevenson MBE stand? What's it going to be?
Do you know, Eddie? I've got no idea.
But the name will be emblazoned.
I'm just hoping that they spell my last name correctly.
With a P?
With a PH,
indeed.
not a V.
Indeed. I'm sure they'll get you right. I'm sure they will. Stevo, we'll talk again next week. Mike Stevenson with a P, MBE. Talk to you in 7 days' time.
Take care, top man.